I'm going to switch because we got to get to our guest. And as I bring in Pratik Chougule, he's able to listen in the background, but I want to set it up this way. So you all know about the potential Trump indictment. You probably saw the bombshell letter that came out just in the last day or two that was leaked out there from Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen was supposedly their star witness. Well, his lawyer wrote a letter back to the Federal Election Bureau. What year is this? And right up here, 2018, 5 years ago, saying, "Look, Mr. Cohen uses old Trump money. Trump didn't know anything about it. Trump never reimbursed him. It was not a campaign expenditure, just something that Michael Cohen did. This should blow up the case. Should." But have the odds dropped on Trump getting arrested? So with that set up, let's bring on our guest, Pratik Chougule. Pratik, welcome to the Dugout.
Thank you for having me.
So you're on a very interesting website called Star Spangled Gamblers. As I show the website, just tell us a little bit what it is, first of all, Pratik.
So the idea behind Star Spangled Gamblers is basically the idea that our political discourse is very broken because we have polling that has mixed reliability. We have political pundits who make predictions and aren't held accountable when they make wrong predictions. And so our idea is that we look at betting markets. So when I say betting markets, we basically look at essentially stock exchanges, but for politics, where people like us take our own money and bet on what we think will happen in politics. And by looking at what people are doing. Oh, Mike, I can't hear you.
Oh, my bad. I love that. A stock exchange for politics. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, so the idea is that when there are people like us who are betting our own money on what we think is going to happen, it's not that we're going to be right all the time or wrong all the time, but it's a way of basically looking at politics through a different kind of a lens. So that's what we do at Star Spangled Gamblers.
We create odds on certain political events happening or not happening?
Yeah, so basically there are a number of different ways that betting happens. One is through a prediction market where you're trading against other people. So whatever the market price is the aggregate of what the crowds think. But then there are also sports books and things where a bookie will set the odds and then you have to decide if you have an edge over the bookie.
Right, but when it comes to the political betting, is your group just publishing what other people have said is odds, or are you actually creating the odds yourself?
Well, I and people on our site, we trade our own money. So obviously the trades that we make will influence the market, but we're trading ultimately against a whole group of other traders out there. So there's millions of dollars out there being bet on politics.
But you guys don't take and place the bets, right? You guys don't do that, right?
No, we bet our own money. So for example,
for a viewer, what's my reason for wanting to go to your website then?
The view is basically that if you are interested in politics and you want to know what's going to happen, and you know that when you watch cable news, these guys bloviate, but their predictions are always wrong, or you don't really trust the polls. What you can do is look at people like us who are betting our own money and say, okay, these people have a real financial stake in our predictions. What are we saying? And then maybe more importantly,
I get it. So it's really just you're really just playing a pundit as an odds maker, basically.
Yeah, so look, I have an ideology. Okay, there are things I want to happen in politics, but just because I want them to happen is no guarantee they will happen. So, what am I and what are people like me who are betting on politics? What do we actually think is going to happen when our money is on the line? That is kind of the premise of our website.
Right, so do you have some of those odds in front of you? Let me just ask you an assortment of questions, and then you can tell me a few others off the top of your head. But since I led with it, right now, or how has it changed? I mean, with this revelation, this letter, what are the odds? What were they 3 days ago, and what are the odds now on Trump getting indicted?
So obviously, after the rumors of Trump's indictment, which was supposed to happen on Tuesday, the market spiked, but now they've come down a little bit, but traders still believe that Trump will get indicted. The odds are about 50-50 that he'll be indicted before the end of the month, but traders are a lot more confident that by the end of May, he will get indicted, that's trading basically in the 80s right now.
And so, and even be, all right. So 80% that he'll be indicted at some point. So the theory is, and you see the same thing with, we've seen the same thing with elections. Now, do you guys get involved in elections too? Because we've seen, okay, here's what the polls say, but what we've started to see at the last few elections, like, yeah, but here's what the bettors are saying, right? Because, you know, like you said, it's hard to separate your personal philosophy and beliefs from your political, even as a pollster. But when you're putting your own damn money on the line, you got to really have some faith in that, right? So there's a difference between polling and betting, right?
Yeah, and look, to be clear, it's not always the case that the betting markets are better than the polling.
Right, right.
Often they are, but in the midterms, for example, the bettors thought there would be a red wave, whereas the polling showed a closer race. The polls turned out to be closer to the mark. Yeah.
But it's another something for, you know, political junkies like me to look at, right? All right.
Yeah.
So John Fetterman, what you guys, is there a healthcare cover-up going on there? Is he really sicker than we think? What are your odds say on that?
So the markets basically believe that there is that in all likelihood Fetterman will remain in office, but that there is a significant chance that Fetterman will not be in office by the end of the year. Sorry. The markets think that about 20% chance that he'll be out before the end of the year. I have looked into this issue. We've investigated it on the podcast. We've talked to different reporters and so forth. My conclusion so far is that there in fact has been a cover-up, that Fetterman's health has been quite bad for a while, that we don't really know the full extent of it. But given that the way the political dynamics are in Washington, unless he's really in bad shape, he will basically continue to be in recovery, but he'll remain a senator through the end of the year.
All right, so 80% chance of that.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm still confused on one thing. Before I go back and ask you about a few more specific odds, again, explain. You keep saying the markets this way. Is any of this relative to you and your partners' odds? I mean, is it all market odds, you know, from the larger betting sites, or is some of this slanted the way you guys have done research on it? When you post something, is that just the general market that anybody can find anywhere, or is it something specific and customized that you guys do?
Yeah, so look, like let's take the Fetterman example. Okay, so there's a site, for example, called polymarket.com. So Polymarket is a crypto-based betting site. And so what I will do is they're offering a market. Will there be a Senate vacancy in Pennsylvania? So I'll go on the site and I'll see, okay, what is the market price? And by market price, all that means is all these people go on the site, bet their own money. What is the price that they agree to? Right. So some people think Fetterman will be out, some people won't. And they agree that the price should be about 80% that he will be there. Now, I go into that market and I say, okay, do I think the odds of Fetterman remaining in power, are they higher or lower than 80%? My personal view is that they're higher. So I would go on that website and buy the yes at 80%. And then hopefully I will just hold it and it'll close at 100 by the end of the year.
So your website, you're not here to provide advice to gamblers, you know, who might want to go out and gamble, although some people might use it that way. You're just here, just like a poll would be here, to inform people of what a certain cohort of experts or bettors are leaning, right?
We do actually tailor our content
Okay.
for other people trading, but our hope obviously is that people like you and your audience who probably are not betting would find value in our analysis anyway.
Yeah, all right, so the next one is Ron DeSantis going to run for president? How are you guys handicapping that one?
So the markets believe that Ron DeSantis is very likely to run for president. And if you look at the odds on just who will end up being the Republican nominee, the markets have more or less priced in the idea that DeSantis is running. So I think it would come as a big surprise were he not to run. And
so 80-90% certainty you'd give it?
Yeah.
And then who's going to win? The
so
Republican.
right now, this is very interesting that most of the betting markets believe that Trump remains the favorite to win the Republican nomination. Trump is trading about 50% to be the Republican nominee. And what I have found interesting is that price has not moved substantially, even with rumors swirling of the indictment coming.
Wow. Wow. Do these, like the Mar-a-Lago raid, the potential arrest here, we know about the false impeachments. We know that in a lot of those instances, Trump's popularity actually went up. Have you, yeah, so you kind of just alluded to that, but have you seen that in the markets as well?
Yeah, so look, I think that basically traders there are two sort of theses that seem to be animating what traders are thinking. One is precisely what you said, that these legal rumors have been swirling around Trump since even before he got elected. And time and again, whether it's Russiagate or the Ukraine situation, whatever it is, these legal challenges come and Trump fends them off, and the Republican base rallies around him. The other side of the argument would be, look, it's different this time. You have indictments coming potentially from New York, from Georgia, from the Department of Justice. You have the classified document situation, January 6th. By the time the primaries come around, Trump could be in real legal hot water. So these are the two competing arguments. Right now, the markets
Right.
believe that Trump is still the favorite, and I think that that reflects what the polling is showing right
What
now.
odds do the bettors put on that Trump will win?
Uh, for a Republican nominee, he's trading at around 50%,
And DeSantis would be at what?
low 30s.
Okay, low 30s. All right. Then there's Joe Biden on the other side. There's two questions here. Is he going to be the nominee? And when is he going to announce his reelection bid?
Yeah, so right now the markets only give Biden about a 70% chance of being the Democratic nominee, and they put him
Oh,
under 50.
not a certainty.
Yeah, my personal view for what it's worth is that the markets are not priced correctly. I think I would put Biden closer to a 95% chance of being the Democratic nominee. But so I mean, this goes to show that the betting markets are not always on the mark. But I think that there are real questions on Biden's age, whether or not he'll be in any kind of a shape to run a presidential campaign by next year.
All right, let me broaden this out and just ask generally. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left, Pratik. This is very interesting. We want to have you back on. This is fun. This is great fun. But do you guys like have tentacles out there to get insider information? Obviously you're not going to be bribing people like the 1918 Black Sox or anything like that in baseball, but I'm sure a little bit of information here or there could really shift the odds. Do you guys just pretty much go on what's publicly available, or do you have some, not that it's illicit in any way, but you guys have your own little networks here?
It's very interesting that one of the things that's so remarkable about bad predictions in our political sphere is that information to a remarkable degree is democratized, which is to say that if you spend a couple hours every day or every week just reading what's out there in the open source from journalism and whatever else, there's actually quite a bit of information out there. The much harder thing is actually knowing how to process information. And so much of what we see in our society is driven by ideology and people's political biases that if you can simply be disciplined
Media,
and
yeah.
yeah, and thinking about what will happen, think about it in terms of odds and put your money on the line. I mean, I would say 98% plus of the trades I make and the best traders in the world make are based on the same information that everyone else has. And that remaining 2%, it's just a matter of making a few phone calls or something. It's not, I can promise you I don't have a direct line to Kamala Harris or something like that.
All right, the website is starspangledgamblers.com, and go. It's a lot of fun. Take a look, and people can browse around and see all the odds, right? Pratik. All right, I don't want to let you go because I know you have another expertise. Just we only got about a minute and a half, so explain your background in international affairs, world, geopolitical science, and your thoughts on what's going on with Ukraine and Russia. I know you have a background. You even worked in the government for a while, didn't you?
Yeah, I was at the State Department in the George W. Bush administration.
Yeah.
Well, look, on Russia and Ukraine, it's hard to really know what's happening on the battlefield, but obviously I think a big determinant of how that war will shape out will be what the American people decide. Is there a national interest in the US continuing to arm and fund Ukraine's government? And the Ukrainian nation that is fending off a Russian imperialist attack. We've seen in the Republican primaries already, this is becoming a real source of contention. But as of right now, I think as long as Biden remains the president, I think the Ukrainians will have strong support, not only from the US, but the West.
And I'll tie that together. Give me some kind of odds. What's the market saying about Russia-Ukraine war outcome?
Well, I'll tell you, if you are interested in looking at this through a gambling lens, there's a site called insightprediction.com. And I would say check that out. It's actually started by an American academic who was in Russia and just only recently returned. And they have a bunch of different markets that are very detailed about specific battles and so forth in the Ukraine conflict. I would check that out. But I think the short answer is traders are about as confused as everyone else what is going on.
Right.
With that
and the last thing I want to say, we don't have time to discuss it, but I was one of those phone calls you made once. In fact, you had me on your podcast with your partner last summer to get my views on what I thought was going to happen with the Rhode Island gubernatorial and congressional races. And I think I predicted it pretty good. I said, look, I think McKee's going to win, but I think Folks is closing the gap. I don't know if you ran with that or used it at all, but that was and it came out to be pretty accurate. So, you can use me as one of those phone calls in the future, Pratik. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll put plug for your show. What we have found as traders is that some of the best information actually is not at the national level, it's at the local level. People who are in these states who really know the local scene. So I appreciate that. And
congressional race coming up here, an empty seat with David Cicilline. So maybe we'll talk about that. Can't wait to see if you guys handicap that. Pratik Chougule, really fun. Thanks for joining us on In the Dugout. We definitely want to have you back soon. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Wow. All right. So who's the gambler out there, right? Go to his website, take a look at the odds, what the market is putting out there, and I'm sure you can find a betting site to play some wagers on. What do you call it? The political stock market. I kind of like that.